Hey, good people. Welcome to the Evolving Education Project podcast, hosted by me, Dr. Tiffany M. Niachai, and friends, where we center the educational joys, passions, interests, and inquiries of people of color. We would like to begin by thanking everyone who left 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we especially want to thank Applehead25 for your positive written review there. They wrote, educational, informative, and timely. I absolutely love this podcast. Heart emoji, heart emoji, heart emoji. Thank you, Applehead25. And we extend heart emojis right back to you. I also want to shout out one of our listeners with the Instagram handle Meg_7315. Thank you for liking several of our Instagram posts in a row this past Monday. Only the real listeners, well, those who at least listen all the way to the end, know to do that. Wink, wink. This episode is part 3.1 of our Culturally and Historically Responsive Literacy Now, the Brilliance and Joy of Students of Color series. To start from the beginning of the series, go to episode 14 and listen all the way through. We don't want you to miss any part of this powerful series, which is inspired by Dr. Gholdy Muhammad's best-selling book, Cultivating Genius, an equity model for culturally and historically responsive literacy, as well as her second book, Unearthing Joy, a guide to culturally and historically responsive teaching and learning. For this episode, we will learn about the work of Ivelisse Ramos Brannon, former high school English teacher, curricular consultant, and Ph.D. student at Harvard University. This conversation was originally recorded in the fall of 2021. I only have a few more of these, y'all, okay? Just we're going to get through all of these previously recorded, okay? I promise. So at the time, Ivelisse was a master teacher at Central Park East High School in East Harlem. She has taught high school ELA, that's English Language Arts for our non-teacher people who are also listening, and composition in New York City for over 15 years. A former student of New York City public schools, Ivelisse teaches to serve diverse and dynamic young people in the system that nurtured her. As a teacher and leader, she works to advance equity through a focus on culturally and historically responsive education and leadership, social justice education, and social emotional learning. Under the mentorship of Dr. Gholdy Muhammad, Ivelisse conducts research around culturally and historically responsive education, writes curriculum, and coaches educators committed to equity and excellence. And we're so happy to hear that she's pursuing her doctoral work now in 2024. Her most recent research and publications center around empowering Black and Brown youth through self-directed learning, community building, and critical literacy. Now, let's listen in. Yeah, so I'm so happy that you said yes, because I asked you, I was just like emailing. I had interviewed Gholdy, Dr. Muhammad, and I was like, who are some teachers that you know that's really doing this work? Because I got to see, interview the people that's really doing it. And she gave me your name, some other people's name. So I'm just so thankful that I reached out to you and you said yes. And I'm excited because I know we about to learn today.
Well, I'm really, really honored to be here. Gholdy knows I'm a Hill enthusiast. I'm her biggest fan. So I'm really thrilled to be here and to talk about the work.
I love your back. Okay, okay. Let me calm down because I'm really excited. So when the screen, because when the screen came in and I saw the visual, it just warmed my heart because I'm like, she's in a school building, and I remember those windows, and I remember bookshelves like that, and I remember those types of chairs in the background. Like, I just love the whole image. And what does your picture say in the behind you?
Right
I
here,
love that.
Education for Liberation.
Yes.
Okay, so I shamelessly stole that from my homegirl and colleague, Lena Chow. Somebody put it in my room when they were cleaning rooms, and I was like, this is the best thing ever.
That's
I don't
right.
know whose poster this is, but I love it, and I kept it in my classroom. I was like, I'm gonna protect it for whomever it belongs to. And then I just turned it around one day, and I said, it said "Ciao." So I went to Lena. I said, Lena, I just have to tell you, I have to admit, I have your poster. I've had it for like 3 months already. I didn't realize it belonged to you. And she said, it's yours. She let me keep it.
Oh,
It's very special to me, and I took it home with me. I took it home with me during remote learning, so it was part of my background in remote learning.
oh. Well, you see, I knew you was the right person to be up on here talking about this with education for liberation in the back. I'm all about that. So listen, we're ready. I'm gonna get going. Okay, so now that I've seen you, I'm only gonna add a little bit to this one question, but not a lot, okay?
Go for it.
Just a little
I'm gonna
bit.
do my best.
Okay, just a little bit. So when I say tell us about yourself, so I have like, tell us about yourself in terms of like what you do in education and all facets of it, but also tell us about your identities, like and who you are as well, and then who you are as an educator and what you do in education.
Awesome. So I'll start with my identities because I think teaching, being a teacher, is a huge, huge part of my identity. People ask me, "Who are you?" That sometimes I say I'm a teacher before I say I'm a mother, and I have to catch myself. I'm like, "Bad mommy, you're a mother." So I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister,
Yes.
and I'm a teacher. And I think teaching is such a big part of my identity because I come from a long line of teachers. My mom was a teacher. She taught business education. She never taught teaching. She never taught in public schools, but she taught business education for a nonprofit. My grandmother was a Sunday school teacher, and she's
Yes.
still trying to teach me and everybody else everything she knows. And so I have been teaching ELA since 2008. So this is my 14th year in the classroom. I teach English language arts and advanced placement language and arts in East Harlem in New York City. I've taught in New York City schools my whole career. This is my third school. I taught in the Bronx, I taught in Brooklyn, and I settled here in East Harlem almost 10 years ago, or this is my 10th year here at this school. I also have a teacher leadership role. This year I'm a master teacher. I've been a teacher leader for we have official teacher leadership titles here. So this is my 4th year in an official teacher leadership role. So as a teacher leader here, I coordinate and facilitate professional learning for my school and sometimes for schools outside of, rather within my district. I have coached, I've mentored. I consider myself, I am a teacher researcher. I've worked with Fordham University and Drew University professors to in something called digital. It actually started in Fordham, now it's at Drew, Digital Literacies Collaborative, led by the brilliant Kristen Turner. And in the last 4 years, or 3 to 4 years, I focused my research on culturally and historically responsive teaching. And so I've worked with teachers all over the city and all over the Northeast, really, to help them grow their culturally responsive practice.
You better. Wait, you better. You bad. You bad. Listen.
I'm something. I am getting through the day, Tiffany. Do not be fooled like everybody else right now.
You are doing it.
Thank
You
you.
are doing it. And you know what? I know this is going to be so inspiring for our listeners, people who are teachers, because I think sometimes we don't realize all of the possibilities in teaching. And I love how you educate in a lot of different ways. So you're a classroom teacher, ELA teacher, you're educating other teachers as a teacher leader, and this is really, 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 really exciting. So Ivelisse, I'm going to ask you to transport us to your classroom and other learning spaces, because I'm asking these to the other teachers, but I built this question around you because I know you do. I know you're a teacher leader, you do all of this other stuff too, but so I really built it around you, had you in mind. So transport us to your classroom or the various learning spaces that you inhabit, or all of that. What will we find? What will we see? What will we feel? What would be happening?
So right now I'm in the classroom that I taught in for 9 years, actually. I mean, I was even here last year in a hybrid, in a part-time capacity. And if you look around my room, you'd see pictures of my kids, my home children, and my school children. You see student artwork. You see books here in my classroom. You even see my plants. In my home space, I tried to recreate this experience when I was teaching from home. So as I told you, I brought the posters home. I even brought pictures of my students home with me because, I really needed those to get through the day. And I think what you would see here, I hope that I'm going to tell you what I feel. I feel loved, I feel supported, and I feel supportive when I'm in my teaching spaces. So, and I think that's important, to feel supportive and supported, right? And I would say that you would see people working together in all spaces, right? In my classroom, you'll see kids clustered together, 3 feet apart. Everyone listening, 3 feet apart. And, online as well, in chat groups or breakout rooms. And the same is in adult learning spaces, people working together collaboratively, solving problems. Yeah. And hopefully being happy, with energy, lots of energy. I feel energy when I'm in my room. I always try to bring the energy because, sometimes the students, they're tired. I don't blame them. Right. They go to bed late and they wake up early. And so sometimes I have to bring that energy, and I have to get, and so we feed off of each other's energy.
Yes, I love that energy. And what I love that you said that I think is so loving, my home children and my school children.
I love these children. They really are. But I feel like you have to feel that way in order to do this work, because the work is so challenging. You said something earlier about all the things I do. Like, I have to be real. I'm not the only teacher I know who's doing so much right now. And, those teachers have always been doing things. In order to give so much of yourself, you really, really have to love these children like they were your own children. Mm-hmm. You have to give them the kind of support that you would want, and the kind of agency that you would want a teacher to give your own children.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You have to learn. I love what you said about there's a lot of teachers doing a lot of work, right? And and the teachers who are what we would consider the loving, the good teachers, they do a lot of stuff. They don't even realize all of this. Y'all don't realize all the stuff that when I look back, that's why now I'm very careful. I was a classroom teacher for 7 years, but I'm still an educator. I'm still a teacher, and I do have times when I do things with youth and I do workshops and stuff. But I remember that life when I was a classroom teacher, and now that I'm a professor, I really make a distinction, like, it's different, right? And I lived that life, and I was one of those teachers that did a lot, right? So I'm like, I respect it, and I make a distinction, right?
I wish our leaders respected it more, right? Yeah. And that people in general respected it more, because it's a lot, and the system isn't really. I was just thinking about this the day. I know I'm kind of digressing here, but I'm like, we are teaching anti-oppression, right? We are in these classrooms teaching kids about marginalized communities, about exploitation. And it's really hard to do that and not recognize the ways in which you as a teacher are being exploited.
You better
okay? Seriously, we have to do more. We have to make life for teachers, for good teachers, for the kind of committed teachers we want in our classrooms teaching our children of color. We need to make this life more sustainable for them, because we shouldn't have to make a choice of, this weekend am I going to do all of this for school, or am I going to go to my son's hockey game? That's not a choice teachers should have to make. And we make that choice. I'm not the only teacher. Right. I know many teachers who have to make these choices every day, and it's really unfair. Mm-hmm. And I could go on, but anyway.
It is unfair.
And we love our work.
It doesn't.
But you got to have joy to give joy.
Yep.
Right? And so sometimes making those choices, living that life, it sucks the joy out of teachers, and then we wonder why nobody wants to teach anymore. Yep. Shocker.
Or you lose the good people. That's what they like. I'm telling you, if I didn't have like a really bad year, I probably would still be in the classroom. I loved it was never the students. It
That's
you
gonna
know,
happen. Yes,
I
that's the
love
best part of my
that's
day.
the best part. I miss having a classroom space. I miss decorating the classroom. I wish they would just let me decorate a college room and nobody could touch it and make it like I miss all of that type of stuff, right? And I miss my students and I miss just something very special that you do in a classroom with young people that and you're with them the whole year and how it changes how the community changes throughout, and how you build and you work at it and it's just you just have this great learning community by the time you get to the end and people I would really love to work with leaders about how to lead in ethical and honoring ways, right? And how not to, sometimes sometimes I feel like all the good teachers get punished for like these trifling teachers over here. Like you have to know the difference. You can't, because that's how I felt when I was a teacher. I felt like I was getting yelled at for stuff that I'm like, I don't even be doing that. I don't know.
Not me.
Like, I know who
Can you
do
just have a
that, but I
conversation?
don't be doing that. So why I got to sit in here and get yelled at on the 8 o'clock, 8:15 in the morning? Now my day is all, not, and then I gotta go teach because we used to do 15. We had 15-minute meetings in the morning on Tuesday. I think it was Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that could mess up your whole day. And your students like, what's
They
wrong
have
with
to.
her? I ain't doing that. You know what I mean?
Do you need a hug?
Right?
I just had a meeting with adults, so yes, actually, come
Yes, come give me
give
a
me a hug.
hug. Come give
Come
me a
give me
hug.
a
And so
hug.
I think like, and if you want good people to stay, you have to we're gonna do our job. We're not trying not to do our work, right? But and so I think sometimes, you know, it reminds me of being in church. Like when I grew up in church, and it reminds me of when,
Same.
we were supposed to go visit another church and only 5 people showed up. And then you go to church, and then you get there and the pastor is yelling at you. And I'm here. Like,
I'm here. I came to church. What are you saying?
I'm here. Like, don't yell at us for the people who ain't
I don't
here,
know.
right? And so I think like knowing who you're talking to, and you have to lead different groups of teachers. So maybe there are some teachers who need that type of, right, and not forever. You should see some growth, but
Yes, absolutely.
not lead everybody that way. And so I appreciate you saying that because we have to remember that. We have to remember that. I even and I really think about those experiences when I lead anything. I think about feeling like that, like feeling like always getting in trouble for something I didn't do, or like, like, or like not being valued or appreciated. And so I work hard at really trying not to lead in those ways. And so I appreciate you saying, and I know you do too when you lead, because you know what that feels like, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, I just finished reading Culturally Responsive Leadership,
Ooh,
Culturally Responsive School Leadership. And I was thinking that I've been thinking a lot about, and I know we're skipping questions
yep,
here, but just in thinking of this, like, culturally responsive teaching, culturally and historically responsive teaching is a model not just for teaching in the classroom, it should be a model for education,
yep,
right? So we not only need to be responsive to our students, but we also need to be responsive to our teachers,
yes.
right? Because in the end, a teacher can close the door and then it's just the teacher and the kids, right? So what are we doing to cultivate our teachers' genius, to cultivate
Come
their
on.
intellect, to foster their joy? That's my next big area of research, I think, because I think what it used to mean, what it means to be happy as a teacher, to be satisfied as a teacher, to feel supported as a teacher has changed dramatically over the years and changed forever after COVID, I think. And I
Yeah.
think now with all of these emerging teacher shortages, with vaccine mandates, and after a year of remote learning, a year and a half of remote learning, right? And
Yeah.
we know where we're losing the most teachers, right? We know we're mostly losing teachers of color, right? Which
Yeah.
is a real problem, right? So I think the whole system needs a total redesign, where we're responsive, like I said, not just to the kids, but also to the teachers,
Yep.
and then maybe also we need to think about like ways that we can promote the profession, right? As one that's not just a respectable profession, but also like an honorable and essential profession, just like we do with the medical field, right?
Yeah.
Like we need that shift I think we need a real shift in public opinion in order for the shifts in policy that we need to support teachers who in the end will be the biggest supporters of students.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to honor our profession. We need to value our profession. We need other people to do that. We serve the public, just like doctors serve the public, just like cops,
Yeah.
if you want to go that route.
I mean, we have people's lives in our hands
We
every
do.
day. Every
Everybody
day,
had
these
a
children's
teacher.
lives are in our hands.
Every person has
It's
had
that
a teacher,
serious.
right?
Yes.
Every person, you can't do anything without a teacher,
No.
and we're so undervalued, or I remember, being like, and I'm sure you have the same story, so many teachers do. Are you sure you want to be a teacher? You could do this. You could do this. You could do
Exactly.
this.
Even so I really want to go. I want to go back to school. I want to pursue a doctorate soon. And my mother said to me, "Are you sure you don't want to go to law school?" I'm like, "Mom, what are you doing?" No, I don't want to go to law school, Mom. But I mean, listen, I want to be real. I love teaching. Teaching is my
Yes.
jam. I feel very, very fulfilled in my profession. I love it.
Yes.
It's what I want to do. Like I want to dedicate my life to education. So I'm not poo-pooing on teaching. I just think that we can do more. And by doing more for teachers, giving teachers like all the things that I do, I need time to do those things, to be a teacher researcher, to work with other teachers. More teachers would benefit from having that kind of time. But when you're teaching, 5 classes a day, 34 kids in each class, it's impossible to do that. When are you going to cultivate your own genius? You need time. When are you going to build your interdisciplinary knowledge? That takes time. Right? And we don't give teachers that kind of time. And I know part of it is, I don't want to get, that we don't have enough teachers, but I mean, there are a lot of factors, right? Historical, economic factors, cultural factors. But I think that that's a thing where we can't lose, right? Like we can't lose, we can't ignore the issues in teaching, because that will affect learning. We know it affects learning. So
that's right. And I hear you saying really about, throughout a theme with a lot of what you're saying is about wellness. That's one thing I really regret. We just going our own way with this.
I know. It's okay. We're going to go back to the questions because they are real. I have some answers. I even typed them up.
Listen, that's what I didn't want you to do. I knew you was going to do that. That's why I kept waiting on giving you them questions, because y'all teachers, y'all so studious.
I knew it. She wants this to be like a real and authentic conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to call. I knew you was going to do that, and I didn't want you to have homework. So I want you to remember that I was not trying to give you homework, because I know y'all work really hard.
I knew you weren't giving me homework. I just like to, because sometimes things come to me later. Okay. And I'm like, oh, I should have said that. I forgot that.
Okay, I'm gonna get you. When I see you in person one day, I'm gonna get you.
Because I hope we're gonna see each other.
I didn't want you to do no whole bunch of work. But anyway, I know you real studious. That's why you who you is. But yeah, I actually forgot what I was to say, so I'll move on. So I believe that teachers must possess particular beliefs about students of color and education in order to embody and enact culturally and historically responsive teaching. So what do you believe to be true about students of color and education?
So I believe that children of color are really I'm not exaggerating, are our greatest hope for the future of education. And that's because for so long, their perspectives, their identities, and their voices, and their histories have been absent from our curriculum and from our policy making. They were absent from the design of the system, right? They're what our system has been missing for so long, even though they've been operating, even though they've been living in the system and growing or thriving or sometimes not thriving in the system, right? So in that way, they're what we need. They're the kids that we need to listen to. They're the kids that we need to plan for and plan around.
You better. Yes. So how do you cultivate genius within students of color and within teachers of color? Because I think that's a theme you're bringing up a lot.
That is huge. I'm so excited. We got 4 new faculty members this year, and they're all faculty members of color. And I fought so hard for so long, to build, a more, to grow our numbers here. Mm-hmm. So that's something I'm really passionate about. So I would say that I start with cultivating my own genius, and I try to model that for my students, my own talents, my own passions. If I'm doing something outside of school, I will try to find ways to bring it into the classroom or to tell my kids. And, sometimes that means also modeling my failures. Like a couple of years ago, I took the GRE. Because I had 2 master's degrees and I never had to take the GRE. So I took the GRE. And I have to be honest, I was teaching and parenting and, doing a number of things. So, I did what I could to study, right?
That's right.
And I kind of, I did a few practice tests and I shared that with my students, the progression, right? Like, this is how I started. This is where I ended up. The same thing, if I'm passionate, like if I'm doing research, I tell the kids, like, sometimes I do research in my class. IRB, I'm not publishing this research.
Right. We understand.
So I always tell the kids, okay, this is for my own research. Right. I'm trying to be better at teaching. You know what I mean? And so I model that learning and growing from failure. I show them what's possible if you keep working to improve. And I think I give them opportunities to grow their own talents and explore their own passions, right? So I want them to dig into the issues that are important to them. So if we're doing a unit on rhetoric and protest, the students can apply the skills that they learn in the unit to compose a protest letter or a speech or a song. Because that's what protest looks like in the real world, right? So that gives them an opportunity to foster the talents that they have and to grow those talents and to develop new talents. Because, every assignment can't be an essay, because in the real world, like, we protest in so many different ways, right? Yeah. So those are just some of the ways. Those are the things that came to mind that I wrote down.
Listen. But let me tell you something. If you are listening, you are a teacher. She just gave y'all like 5 different lesson ideas or more. Okay.
I love to share lesson ideas.
And a unit plan that you could do, okay?
That's one of my favorite units, the rhetoric of protest. Also, I'm in that unit right now. That's how we start. Like in one, I have 2 11th grade. Like one is the AP language class and one is the mainstream class. And my administrators aren't listening, so I give the kids in the mainstream classes the AP work. I just call the unit something else, right?
That's right.
So, because they all deserve to be challenged, and they can all rise to the challenges.
That's right.
So that's why I was thinking of these things, because in both one unit is the rhetoric of protest, and that's the AP Lang unit, and the mainstream unit is learning for literacy for resistance and liberation, and they both culminate in that protest piece.
Yes, come on! I'm gonna have to assign this episode to my literacy class. They gonna have to listen to you. But
I'm very generous with lesson plans and unit plans. I don't put anything on teachers pay teachers. Not that I don't need the money, but I like to pay it forward. I have wonderful mentors, and I've worked with teachers who have been very generous with their resources and their ideas, and have been thought partners. And I will always be there for anyone.
That's right. Okay. What does the book Cultivating Genius offer you that is different from what you already learned about good teaching? And I ask this because, we learn a lot about like what good teaching is, and there have been arguments like, well, that's just good teaching, right? And so what does this offer that's different from what you had already learned?
So I think that what this book offers outside of my learning about good teaching, and even outside of my learning about culturally responsive teaching and culturally relevant teaching, right, is the framework, is the pursuits, right? Everybody loves a framework. And to me, that framework, it not only guides my own unit planning, my own lesson planning, it also helps me to support other teachers that are growing in their practice, right? So that they don't, because the pitfall is, what's the skill? They always want to start with the skill. And the book tells you, no, it's not just about the skill. You got to move away. It's not that the skills aren't important,
Right.
but the skills become so much more meaningful when you put them in the framework and you say, okay, the purpose of these skills is actually to help build all these other things, to help build intellect, to help elevate joy, to build my social political consciousness, to take ideas and put them into action. So it's all about, to me, it's all about the five pursuits and how that helps people create balance in their lessons, in their units, and in their thinking. And in my thinking too, I'm going to put myself in there too. I'm a learner always. I'm always learning to be better.
That's right. So, okay. Speaking about how you're a learner and you're always pushing yourself. So, what I've learned, you are definitely more than a high quality teacher. Okay, like you already said, they done gave you the title of a master teacher. Okay, you
Now,
are a master
am I not
teacher.
supposed to use it? But I heard a lot of people telling me I'm not supposed to use that word anymore. So
Yeah, well, that's just what they gave you. That's how they labeled. She does
that's how they
not.
labeled me.
She's not calling
No,
herself a master
I'm
teacher.
not
That's what
calling
they.
myself anybody's master.
Right. You're not anybody's master, but you are a teacher with great expertise. Okay? And that's what we're going to say. Right? And I use high quality because educators they get that high quality.
Yes,
That's the
absolutely.
that's the lingo. So I know and oh, I forgot to say this, and she is an award-winning teacher, y'all. We're going to put that in the intro in the bio. Okay? She is an award-winning teacher. Come on and
No, no,
have
no.
your picture. Tell us about your
Look,
award.
that's the chancellor. So I just want to tell you. So I won a Big Apple Award. I'm going to tell you, I was one of 20 teachers this year to win a Big Apple Award. But this was a really big deal because the chancellor of schools came to visit my classroom. Okay, Misha Porter. Okay,
Yes.
a proud, brilliant black woman came into my classroom. And let me tell you, I don't know who was more excited, me or my kids. It was a
Yes.
really big deal for my students to see the chancellor, that a news crew came in, that they were talking. I mean, they're still talking about it. Oh, the news came in. Oh, my teacher was on TV. So it was a really
That's
big deal. It
right.
was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment. And
And
I
you
accepted that award on behalf of my whole school community because we all did it.
That's right. That's right. And your students got to share that moment with
And they got to
you.
share the moment with me. It was so beautiful. And they knew it was coming. I didn't.
Oh
They're so
my
good. They kept
gosh.
it secret for a long time.
I
For
love
like
it.
a
That's
month they
well
kept it secret.
deserved.
Oh, thank you.
So, okay, so I know based on that award that you just shared that you were already doing so many things well in your classroom and your work with students, teachers, and in leadership. And you already talked about how you're a learner and you really speak in collective ways, which I really appreciate that. Um, so how does culturally and historically responsive literacy challenge you or push you? And how does it add to your classroom practice and curriculum?
So, as I've said, it really taught me to teach more holistically so that skills no longer hold all the weight in my classroom, right? But it's also challenged me to foreground identity,
Mm,
right? What we're
yep.
learning about ourselves, what we're learning about people who are different from us, to teach through an anti-racist and anti-oppression lens,
Hmm.
right? A lot of English teachers, they think they're just here to teach critical thinking, literary analysis, rhetorical analysis, and it's not just about that. To explicitly and consistently highlight Black and Brown excellence in my classroom, right?
Yes.
So to teach about oppression, but also to teach about excellence,
Hmm.
to grow my interdisciplinary knowledge and my social political consciousness, which was that again was another journey,
Hmm.
and to make social political connections in everything I teach, right? So which meant I had to stop teaching some things and
Hmm.
teach other things, right? It meant I had to stop teaching some authors and replace them with other authors. And so, it's really transformed the way that I teach.
I love how you talked about very specifically like the identity, right? Um your choice of curriculum, your choice of text to focus on, um and how you really are thinking about education as in literacy and ELA English. I'm not even going to say literacy because English classrooms are a particular thing. look, you got to do it this way. It's different from like literacy or reading and writing workshop. Like the English classroom in high school is a particular, like you're going to read these texts. But for
Yeah.
you,
What do you mean you're not teaching the Scarlet Letter anymore? Oh,
right.
I mean, I have to say, I have a really supportive administration, and they let me, for the most part, they let me teach what I want to teach. They don't give me a hard time. They know that what the kids are learning is challenging, that it's rigorous, and they trust me. So I'm grateful for that. So
Yep, and that makes a difference, and that makes you feel supported,
it
and
makes
that
me,
makes
yeah.
good teachers like you want to stay when
You
your
know,
judgments are trusted.
all my love, Bennett, Myra, Cooper, if you're listening, thank you for being such great administrators and supporters and mentors. I'm really lucky. No, because I have a lot of, I have teachers. Listen, I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
I've taught all over the city. I have colleagues who teach all over the city, and not everybody has the same relationship, not even close, with their administrators.
That's
so
right.
I'm really grateful for that.
Yep, it's a blessing. It's definitely a blessing. Okay, so in our conversation, you're hinting at this a little bit, but I'm gonna ask you more specifically. So in our conversation with Dr. Gholdy Muhammad, she shared that criticality is one area of her framework that often gets ignored. Do you agree, and how do you combat this? Additionally, what suggestions do you have for teachers that may be leaving out the criticality, pursuit of the framework?
So here's my honest opinion. I think they leave it out purposefully, and I'm gonna say why. I think I'm gonna qualify this with I think. I think number one, that to teach social political consciousness, you have to have that consciousness yourself. That's a job, because it involves learning about the history, or relearning history, right? And that's a real challenge for some folks. Because they see it as an attack on their own identity. When you tell them what they've learned about the origins, let's say, of our nation, or their heroes, our traditional American values, are largely mythology, right? So that's a job. Learning about the ways in which people of color have been excluded from housing, right? Or we could spend a whole episode talking about all the ways that people of color have been oppressed and marginalized in the various systems throughout our society, right? Yep. Learning about that's a job, right? So that's the thing they would have to learn first, and that takes time. So I think that's one reason why people are reluctant to do that. And the next reason, I think, is because they're afraid to say something problematic, right? No one wants to be in the news. So what I would say, the advice that I would give teachers who are fearful are number 1, 2, which is what I had to do. Be quiet, read, and listen. Sometimes we have to quiet ourselves and listen to other people's voices, right? You got to listen to Black, Brown, Asian, Indigenous folks, LGBTQIA plus folks. Yep. People whose experiences are outside of your own experiences. And even, and I want to say this is even I know even teachers of color who are reluctant to have these conversations for a lot of different reasons. They're also afraid, or they also hold internalized racism that they don't want to confront, right? Because part of this work also involves reflecting on your own beliefs and your own experiences, and that can be painful, perhaps even acknowledging your own privilege. I mean, I had to do that. And then when I first started teaching, I was like, I had that same, if I can do it, you can do it attitude, right? Like, I'm a Latina. My family's is from Brownsville, and look at me. But no, it's not about just you. You also had 2 parents. You also went to X schools, and your friends went to Y schools. You know what I mean? So that's a challenge. So listen and learn. That's one. The second is, I said this already, reflect on your own experiences and biases. Collaborate with other people who have been doing the work. Don't try to do this work alone, because you're going to make mistakes. Even collaboratively, we make mistakes. But it's so important to do the work with other people who have more experience, right? Even if you even seasoned teachers need mentors. Every few years, I take on a new mentor. I'm like, You want to be my mentor? I want to learn from you. And that's, those are the pieces of advice that come to me.
Yes, I love that. I love all of that about doing it's like the self-work and the self-learning and really self-interrogation and being willing to learn, listening to others and then working alongside others. So, yes, absolutely. So, um I think you answered you went to my other question. You answered my other question. You better go ahead. You
Listen,
already you
we digressed. That's where it went. I can say more though if you want to go back to that
no,
question.
no, no. You doing so good because I wanted to know, like, what advice would you give a new teacher who is fearful of teaching in these ways, especially like brand new teachers? Because I think we also don't spend a lot of time, and I think cultivating the book is also pushing for like a teacher identity, like a strong teacher identity, right? And I think sometimes when even my undergrad, I train teachers, I do professional development and all that, and I always get this like, if they're new or they haven't they're a pre-service teacher or whatever, like, well, what do I do at a school? And so how do we I guess I'm asking a couple of things like identity work, identity development in teacher with teachers, new teachers, because it's like I just feel like when I was a brand new teacher, it's just so much to learn. I don't know if you know, but at Lee Shulman, I think it's Lee Shulman, he talks about these different knowledges that you have to be a teacher: the procedural knowledge, the content knowledge, and the other one is like the institutional knowledge, like just what do my contracts say? How do the how do the how do the
That's what we
schools
have a
work?
UFT rep for. I'm always asking my UFT rep.
Like what do I what, or even just the dynamics, like I'm learning that now. I'm at my second year at Penn State. I'm still learning the institution, the politics, like what's the and I you, even as a new teacher, you got to learn that your district, how do things work, right? And so how do you develop these all of these different types of knowledges that you need to have and your identity, and so that as a new teacher, and so that you can do this work and not be so fearful to do this work.
I mean, this is a thing. I think we have to. First of all, I guess I have. Some people would say I have kind of radical views about teaching. I mean, to me, I see teaching as activism.
Come on.
In these days, in
It
these
is.
times that we are so politically divided, that we are still living with the vestiges of oppressive and violent systems, that we're still experiencing those systems, you have to see teaching as activism. I think, like, we have to see teaching as activism, right? And we have to ask ourselves, why am I in this profession? If the answer is to support children, then you're gonna have to find the courage to do it, right? And you're gonna have to be creative. Some people have to be more creative than other people, because some people, I mean, like these people, poor people in Texas, poor teachers in Texas, right? What are they gonna do? Yeah. So that's because children of color need, first of all, I just want to say that all children. And I'm not saying that as all lives matter. I'm not saying it like that. Right. But I'm going to tell you, I want to say very specifically that our children of color need this kind of education to amplify their voices and to empower them. But white children need this kind of education to develop their empathy and to be advocates and allies. Yep. Right? So it's not a matter of should I do this? It's how am I going to make this happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the answer is truth, right? History is history. Truth is truth.
Come on.
I'm just saying. Anyway, I'm not going to digress too much longer, but
digress away.
Let's be serious. Everybody needs to learn about everybody else, and we all need to now we all need to kind of be researchers, right? We all need to dig a little deeper, particularly those of us who, went to school, had a K through 12 education more than 20 years ago, I'm not going to digress too much, but anyway, next question.
Yes. Okay.
What do you mean Thomas Jefferson was a rapist?
What'd you say?
I said, what do you mean Thomas Jefferson was a rapist?
Oh my, I know.
I mean, no, but like really, this is This is a conversation I have with people that I know and love who don't, who really still in their hearts glorify these founding fathers. And, it's painful for them. It's truly painful to hear what you have to say, to hear the truth. It hurts to hear the truth for a lot of people.
And it hurt for us all these years to be lied to and not to be included.
No.
So I'm like,
I mean,
you getting a taste. You getting a little
exactly.
taste with no real impact, with no material impact on your livelihood. It's just something you have to put in your brain.
Did I say empathy?
Listen. Okay. This is your last question. What is your dream for the educational experiences of students of color and or for schools more broadly? What is your dream?
What is my dream? So I was listening to a talk, this is last year. Gholdy was part of this talk. Bettina Love was part of this talk. And they were talking about reimagining education. And Bettina Love said something like, it's my favorite line ever, reimagining, why would we want to reimagine this oppressive system? We don't want to reimagine slavery, do we? And I was like, yes, exactly, right? I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I've attended professional learning sessions where they throw the word reimagining around, and I know what they mean, but I really do think we need a total redesign, and I think that like I said earlier in our conversation, I really do believe that we can use those Hill pursuits as a model for all of education, not just lessons, but for schools more broadly. I think that equity in schools, particularly for our children of color, really demands it. And so, for students of color, I think my dream is that school is not just a school, it's a home place. That's really how we should all feel about school, not just the kids, but teachers too. You come into your second home place.
That's right.
And I think that it should be a place in a perfect world where our kids of color, their histories, their racial, their cultural, their religious, their community identities are valued. And you know that because you can see it. You can feel it, you can hear it in the halls, you can hear it in the classrooms, in their lessons, and with in their interactions with adults. The way that the adults speak to them. I think that schools should be a joyful and intellectually stimulating place, a place where people have freedom. It's not just you're taking these classes because these are the required classes, but there's also room for children and adults to explore their passions and their talents, like I've said earlier. I think everybody would want to go to that place. Who would not want to go to that place? Wouldn't you want to go to that place? I would want to go to that place. I would want to send my children to that place. Where you tackle real world issues. I mean, listen, but again, like I've said, in order to be an intellectual to foster, you have to be an intellectual to foster intellectualism. You have to have joy to nurture joy. And so that starts with creating those experiences for everyone in the building. Not just for kids, but if you make that part of the system, then you solve that problem, And I know that that's gonna take a, radical transformation in the way that we allocate resources as a nation, right? But at some point, we're gonna have to ask ourselves, what do we value, Because, we don't pay for it now, we're gonna pay for it later, we know that. With everything, and the children right now, we see this. The children that are suffering the most in this pandemic, who have always suffered and will continue to suffer, are our children of color, are our children, from historically underserved communities. And so, if we don't begin to serve those students equitably, we will all suffer later. And it's not going to get any better. But I also do optimistically believe that it's possible, right? Yes. I know it's possible, and I see that possibility in my students. I think about that every day when I leave school, when I'm starting to feel when I start to feel discouraged, right?
Yeah.
I know that something else, something better is possible, and I know that if anybody's going to make that happen, it's these kids.
That's right.
Because they're brilliant and they're passionate and they are bold.
Come on.
And
Yes,
they are going to do what generations before them have not had the courage to do. They're going to do it.
You better. That's the whole thing. I mean, that's the whole thing right there. Okay? That is it. I just want to thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing your inner, like, when I started off by asking you what your classroom is like, I know what your classroom is like just from this interview. I feel it. I feel the joy. I feel the passion. I feel, and you know what? I love that you keep saying passion, because our main thing here at the Evolving Education Project, and we're very intentional about this, is that we center the educational joys, passions, interests, and inquiries of people of color. So just to have you just keep saying that and making that a key part, passions, a key part of what your dream educational space would be for teachers, and because we're both learners, the students and us, we're learners, and we're it just gives me so much joy, and just lets me know you are the right person. You could come back here anytime. You just tell us what you want to talk about, okay? You just be like, listen, you email me and be like, Tiffany, I want to do this show on and I'm just gonna be like, when we setting it up, and you just tell me. Cause we just on the same wavelength. I just love it. I'm just excited. I just love it. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Seriously.
No, thank you for inviting me. I was so excited to do this. I was so excited to have this conversation.
What a gift to be in conversation with Ivelisse and to be transported to her loving, critical classroom space, a space I miss so much. If you are a school administrator, teacher leader, or Ph.D. facilitator listening to this episode, I want you to remember her challenge. And I quote her here: "What are we doing to cultivate teachers' genius and to foster their joy?" End quote. Because teachers are working hard to get through the day, and we have to remember that. Especially the ones who genuinely love their children, all of their children, like Dr. Muhammad tells us. Be sure to recognize and appreciate them. I hope Ivelisse comes back, because I'm sure she has a lot more to say about the efforts and resources needed to shift public opinion about teaching. Thank you for listening to part 3.1 of our Culturally and Historically Responsive Literacy Now, The Brilliance and Joy of Students of Color series. Be sure to tune in next Wednesday for part 3.2, where we interview New York City-based dance artist and educator D'Angelo Blanchard as we continue the conversation around the work. Trust, you do not want to miss that. To find out more about the Evolving Education Project, to write in, or to join our listserv, check us out at evolvingeducationproject.com. And please subscribe to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook. If you can only choose one, please follow us on Instagram and love all of our posts. Support that doesn't cost a dime. If you've been enjoying our podcast, you can also support us by writing a review. Favorable reviews help more educators, organizers, families, communities, and activists find us. We hope to continue to cultivate an authentic audience and community. We want you to help us to evolve over time and shape what this could be. Now that you know what we're about, let us know what you want to learn more about, authors that you would like us to interview, discussions you would like to have. Also, please write in by sharing your stories, dilemmas, joys, a related incident that made you laugh, questions, disbeliefs, hopes, and more when it comes to people of color. You can write in through the website, but if you ain't got time for all that, I get it. Write in by sending us a DM through any of our social media outlets. And if you don't want to type it out, you can write in by sending us a voice memo, audio recording, or video. All of this counts as a write-in. Okay, so who should write in? Children and youth of color, parents and caregivers of children and youth of color, traditional and non-traditional educators, students, teachers, leaders, administrators, from early childhood to higher ed, activists, organizers, artists, authors, community workers and leaders, nonprofit, not-for-profit folks, and anyone who loves people of color, is invested in their humanity, as well as their past, presents, and futures, and anyone who wants to make social justice a reality. We will discuss your write-ins on the show anonymously unless you tell us otherwise, so don't miss it. Tune in next Wednesday for a new episode. Yay! Okay, that's all for now, good people. We out.